welcome back to the Salted Journey. My name is Glaelle and I am your host. Thank you for coming back. Happy Friday. You're most likely going to see this on Tuesday, but happy Tuesday. Or whenever you see this, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Um, yeah, this week was a very low week. I don't want to say a very low week, but it was a low week. I had absolutely no energy to do absolutely nothing. Like, I didn't go to the gym at all this week, and that's usually part of my weekly routine. So, I put most of the blame on the fact that I'm a woman, and every month, yeah, my body punishes me. And my hormones are just, yeah, sometimes I feel high, sometimes I feel low. I feel like not everything is a mental health issue. Sometimes it's just literally, especially with women, sometimes it's just literally your body saying like you need to slow down, you need to rest, or your menstrual cycle is coming. So we're gonna prepare you for that. So yeah, so this week was very, very different. I was low. I just didn't have energy to do anything until like the towards the end of the week. Like today, I have the most energy that I had. Yesterday, I had the most energy that I had for the past week, and I cleaned my room and I did so many things that I just couldn't do earlier this week. Like I just didn't have the motivation, the will to do anything. Today's gonna be a pretty busy day. After I wrap up this episode, I have to go to a meeting. I have a nonprofit consultation with a member of this community group that I am in. So I'm excited and I'm looking forward to gain wisdom from them, from these women, and hopefully like leave feeling motivated and feeling equipped with resources that are actually beneficial. Like this nonprofit space is not easy, yo. Like when I tell y'all it's not easy, and I'm just gonna say that just to say that, but like I feel, I don't feel alone, but like I feel like there's so much to do that I don't know what to do. And especially when it comes to grant applications, that is like the thing like I just dread the most. And I posted a job for like a grant writer volunteer position on LinkedIn, and I got like a few applications, and I had scheduled this interview with this young lady yesterday. She was all for it, all of that, and then yesterday came the day of the interview, and she messaged me like an hour before, like something came up, I can no longer partake or have time to even partake in this. And I was like, dang, like I was really, really looking forward for her help. Like I was really like thinking, God, like, oh my God, I have an interview with her. Like maybe she could help take the load off of that and really help me, because I'm not good at like, I'm good at writing when it comes to like feelings, emotions, thoughts, but like when it comes to like applications, essays, technical writing, yeah, no. So I was really looking forward to her help, but you know, I just leave in God's hands. I told God today, I'm like, look, listen, this is all in your hands in regards to all the projects that I want to do, like have a community pantry, run a nonprofit. Like that seems to not be going right. The scholarship fund, we haven't got any donations or like grants coming. I'm like, listen, this is all in your hands. Like if we're trying to bless people this year, the money has to come from somewhere, from you, Lord. So yeah, and if this person was supposed to help me with the grant writing process, which allows me to gain grants, and she just cancel last minute, I'm like, well, something else is gonna come, because yeah, if not, then not. And I'm like, and I just have to just literally take all that load off of me, because it's not my load to carry. Like, Lord, this is your load. You call me to this. Like when it comes to this podcast, the nonprofit, my small, like this is your load to carry, Lord. Like I'm a vessel, and that doesn't mean I do everything. It means like I carry it out. So yeah, send me out. Send me help. If not, then I don't know. I could only do what I can do. You, Lord, are way more powerful than I am, than I will ever be. So that's, hopefully that helps alleviate some people's minds. It's like when you think about things that you have to do and you're like feeling overwhelmed and things like that. It's like, this is not your cross to bear. Like, this is not your load to carry. Like, bro, relax, calm down, let God handle it. And that's just how I feel in this season. It's like, sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm unemployed, I don't know, da da da. But then I'm like, listen, I didn't quit the job. They took the job away from me. I was laid off. So this was all part of God's plan. He told me to focus on this. So it's not my cross to bear. It's you. You said in your words, Lord, if you obey me, your plans will be successful. It will be successful. So I am obeying. So it will be successful. That's it. And that's the thing that we have to hold on to, is his word. And that's all I have, is his words and his promises. So, like, I'm not about to drive myself crazy. No man, no him. But yeah, so again, as you know, like, I don't really have a prompt or a script when it comes to this. Literally 3 minutes before this, I was like, God, what do you want me to talk about? And what came to remembrance was my conversation that I had with a friend. And I was like, okay, cool, I could talk about that. And then I said, Holy Spirit got me through it, and that's what we're gonna do. So earlier this week, a friend of mine from church messaged me, and she was just, no, I messaged her, and I was like, oh, I hope your Mother's Day went well. And she's like, yeah, we were talking, and she was like, how are you mentally? How's your heart? I love that question, because I ask people that question too. Because it's like, a lot of times you ask people, how are you? And you're most likely gonna get, I'm okay, I'm doing well, I'm keeping up, taking day by day. Like, it has no meat, no juice, no potatoes. It's just very surface level, very, like, full of words. But when you ask somebody, how's your mental, how's your heart, that allows that person to really dig deeper and have a deeper thinking, understanding, and deeper answer to give you. So a lot of people ask me that, and she's one of two people that have asked me that. But yeah, she asked me that, and actually, I'm just gonna read the message because we're vulnerable here, right? We're transparent. Her name is Bew. I love her. Ever since I met her, I was just like, oh, this is such a amazing human being. Like, I wish nothing but her, but nothing but the best. Let's see. She said, what's new with you? How's your heart? How's your mental? I said, I feel like my heart is getting cold, and I put it in quotation marks. I feel like my heart is getting cold or guarded, and I believe it has to do with me still holding on to past hurts. The trust I have in people, especially men, has decreased tremendously. I used to be the one who always sought to see the good in people. I was a major people pleaser. So getting out of that kind of made me extremely skeptical and uninterested in humans, which is slowly transferring to my trust in God. And then I said, mentally, I am a bit overwhelmed. Too much thoughts run rampant all the time. Dang, that's deep. I forgot I wrote all of that. But, yikes. But that is honestly so true. And I think, I don't know, like, when you go in that healing process, right? And I was a major people pleaser. Being a people pleaser is a terrible trait to have, because you're not being your authentic self. You're not showing up as your true self. You're showing up as what you think people will accept you as. And you're doing this, and it's most likely based from a deeper root. Like, being a people pleaser is a product. It's a product of what's underlying, basically. It's like a symptom of the real disease. Like, you know, when you have a fever is a symptom of the flu or COVID, God forbid, right? But yeah, me being a people pleaser came from the trauma of me growing up in an abusive household, where I saw my dad abuse my mom and my older siblings. So what I did to combat me not getting my butt beat, me in turn being abused, I overcompensated by being the best child I think I could ever be, like, by constantly being a yes man, by constantly, like, being on my dad's good side, because I was literally terrified of him, and people thought I was a daddy's girl. But in reality, I was terrified of the man and I didn't want to get beaten. So yeah, I put on a mask, and that carried on with me throughout my childhood, of me making friends. Every friend that I made, my goal was to be as nice as possible, so they don't turn on me, they don't bully me, they don't be mean to me, they don't whatever. I was constantly terrified of confrontation, terrified of any uncomfortable conversation, just terrified of everything. And I always took the place of humility, which is not a good humility. Always took the place of being shy and quiet and reserved, allow the other person to shine. Whatever they wanted, I did. And I also translated into relationships, me settling a lot, me not really constantly speaking up of what I really wanted. Yeah, so in translating a lot of things into my adulthood, when in regards to my career, me not speaking up for myself, speaking up for others when I see other people get mistreated in the workplace, me being scared to ask for time off, just a whole bunch of different things that stem from me growing up in an abusive home. And I noticed that that I was a people pleaser like 3-4 years ago, and I was like, whoa. And I realized the ripple effect that it had on my life, and the relationships that I had, and the way I maneuvered in life and career and just anything. And yeah, so me constantly trying to work on that, and it was great me getting out of that. Me trying, it was a journey of me stopping being a people pleaser. First I had to understand where it came from and acknowledge it, and also forgive myself for allowing a whole bunch of people to treat me the way that they did, and forgive myself for not knowing better, and also learning how to maneuver in this new space where I had to now learn about myself, because for so long I did what others wanted. I molded myself into different spaces and different rooms so that I could be likable, in fear of rejection, in fear of confrontation, in fear. So I had to learn, okay, what does Glaelle actually like? Who is she? Where does she generally feel happy or at peace or herself? And that is still a journey that I'm still navigating now. But that's something I had to go through. And the terrible process of that, of when you're healing, and when I was healing and just getting out of that people pleasing space and actually being a woman of my own and taking up my own life, I felt for so long, I used to constantly say this to friends, like I felt like I wasn't the main character of my own life. Like I was being a side character in my own life because I constantly let other people take that place, which is terrible. So learning how to be the main character of my own life, like what do I want to do? Like when people would invite me out, this is not what I'm doing now, like setting boundaries and like, okay, I actually don't want to go to this event. I'm not going just to please you so that way, you know, you can see that I'm a good friend, or am I going because I'm like, I generally want to go? So yeah, so these little small things I had to put in place, I had to constantly do to stand up for myself, to take back my life, and to just be my authentic self and learn what I like and what I don't like. And it's still a journey. I went through the journey of just like the whole journey of the downside. That's what I was talking about for that's actually the downside of that. It's like it's good that I'm learning and I'm just growing into my own, but the downside is like now I feel resentful, I feel anger, and I feel kind of a hatred towards all the people that actually hurt me and took advantage of me and took my kindness for granted, and just rightfully it was just terrible to me. And I look at the friendships that I have now, and I'm like, okay, what is our friendship based on? Is our friendship based on my efforts, my constant efforts to please you, my constant efforts to be the good friend, my constant efforts to constantly show up for you? And I realized like a lot of my friendships are like that. Like a lot of them is me showing up, me constantly showing up to all the events that person hosts, being their cheerleader, me cheering them on. And it's not that that was fake, that was genuine on my end, but I had to look at it. I'm like, okay, what is that person doing for me? So I truly believe that friendships should be reciprocal, energy. All relationships should be. Um, but the focus shouldn't be on what you're getting, but it should be reciprocated. You should feel as equally loved as you were loving. So yeah, so I got into that space of like isolation because I started looking at everybody around me, and then it just started creating this big ball of hatred towards people and human beings as a whole. And yeah, so when my friend asked me like, "What is your art?" like, and I was just like, "Dang, my heart is kind of cold and guarded," because now I look at everybody as skeptical. Like before, I used to be like, "Oh, I wish the best for everyone," because I wanted to be liked. But now I don't want to be liked. I don't care if you like me. I'd rather you not like me. Actually, um, I don't seek your validation anymore. So now I'm in a space where I'm just like really trying to see people for who they are, and it's a good thing because you learn to be more aware. What is the word I'm looking for? You learn discernment and things like that. But it's a bad thing because I don't want to go out into this world with like a cold shoulder, with hate first, you know. So I have to learn in this space to like be loving to all, but also setting boundaries when it comes to allowing people into my closed space, taking my time, but be loving to all. Where it's like whether you're a stranger or family member or whatever, we don't see eye to eye, being loving regardless. But when it comes to my closed space, I don't have to allow you there. I don't have to like you. I don't have to have you like me. I don't have to put on a show for you to like me and be like, oh wow, Glaelle is a good person. Glaelle is a good person regardless if we're friends or not. Glaelle tries to be, let me just say that. Glaelle tries to be a good person regardless if we're close or not. So whether you acknowledge it or not doesn't change the fact that I'm trying to be a good person or I am who I am. Yeah. So that's where that stemmed from. And I was like, dang, like just typing out loud and saying it to someone else. It's like, wow. I have this deep hate. I don't want to say it is hatred. Because I really like, especially on social media, when I watch videos of girls coming on crying and saying like, oh, this man did this and this and that. It just deepens the hatred that I have for men. I know this this episode sounds terrible, but I don't say it sounds terrible, but what I'm saying sounds like, oh my gosh, like what? But it's the truth, and it's exactly where I'm at. And I had to be completely transparent. This is what God called me to be. This is not where I'm gonna stay. I know this, but this is where I am in my healing journey. This is the ugly. The ugly is, yes, I'm getting away from being a people pleaser, and I'm learning to love myself. I'm learning to be by myself, and I'm learning to own up who I am and do the things that I enjoy. But the side part of that, me healing the hurt part of myself, like the part that allowed so many people to like walk over me and hurt me and do things and put me in positions where I was very uncomfortable, but I stayed there just to make them happy, and that's my fault. Now I'm like, now that I see other people getting hurt, it just grows a hatred for mankind, and it sucks because I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel unbothered. I want to be unbothered by the things that people do. You know what I mean? In a way where I'm just like, okay, I'm bothered in a way where it doesn't ruin my mood. It doesn't make me like sick or build this deep in emotion. Because I am an empath, and I know this. So when I see girls, and I say girls because I mostly see girls coming on TikTok, making their videos and just crying, like, especially in past Mother's Days, there's so many mothers coming out like, oh yeah, my husband made me cook, my husband made me do this, my husband forgot it was Mother's Day, oh my gosh, this woman said this woman said that her husband was like, well, her first husband said to her like, oh, I don't have to give you a Mother's Day gift because you're not my mom. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It just grew so much hatred. And you know what I'm thinking about right now? Like, when I see men mistreat women, it just reminds me of my father, and it makes me grow hatred towards him. And I am in a place where, even though my parents' marriages like did a whole 360, my dad forgave, like, asked for forgiveness. God forgave him. He's a changed man, like 360 changed man. I can't forget, one, and two, it makes me want to seek revenge from my mom, and it's not even my place. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this episode. But this is what happens when God just lets me talk. But yeah, and when I see men mistreat women, it makes me, one, remember what my dad did, and also makes me very angry. And then it makes me want to seek revenge. And then it makes me want to be like, you know what? F it all. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so that is where my heart is currently. And it's not always like that. Some days are up and down, but that day, that's just how I felt. I felt like just a deep weight of like disgust with the human race and how people treat other people. And I was talking to God yesterday, and about how, you know how like in the Bible it says like vengeance is God, like revenge is God's, and he would take care of his people, whatever. And I think about my mom and all the things that she went through in her marriage. When I say years and years of abuse, years and years of terrible, disgusting, inhumane abuse, that she didn't deserve. No one deserves that. And I just think of that, and I'm like, God, it's great that my father is a different man. Let's acknowledge that. It's great that he sought forgiveness, that you forgave him. It's great that he is a man going to church, a man serving at a church, a man that's docile now, that's calm, that's like together now, versus like the beast that he was before. The angry man that he was before the abuser. It's great that God redeemed their marriage. I know that's something that my mom really wanted. I'm sure that she prayed on her knees every time, because she wanted to stay in that marriage. I don't know why, but she did, and God redeemed it. And I don't like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh yeah, if your husband or spouse is abusing you, that God will redeem it and you should stay with that person. I don't. I feel like what I would rather have my mom do is like not continue being abused for years and years and years. And if God wanted to redeem their marriage, God would have worked on my father separately while they were separate, while they were apart. And then my dad would have came correct and got our family back together. I think that would have been such a better route, because it will allow us to see that, especially my sister and I as women, to see that, you know, we shouldn't accept things like that. We should, when a man is treating us terribly, to leave, and if that's somebody that God wants you to be with, that they will come, but on your terms and in right terms and better. And also be an example to my brother, like, you know. But you know, my mom wanted to stay. That's her story, her testimony, her journey, and my God redeemed it all. Their marriage is better. It's not perfect, but it's better. Yeah, but I found myself like, okay, great, God, you like did it. You know, you redeemed him. He's better. He looks happier. He looks healthier. He's more calm. Definitely like different man. Every time like people see my dad, they're like, oh my God, he's such a nice man, because he is now. And I get kind of angry. I get angry because I'm like, okay, great, like, and it's like I have two feelings about it. One feeling is like, great, like, glory to God, like, you're able to turn anybody around, like, you know, people are being saved. That's amazing. You know, people are no longer doing wrong. That's great. But then on the other side, I'm like, and that's just gonna sound bad, but this is my honest truth. On this other side, I'm like, dang, but he still should have, like, I feel like he should have consequences should have been held. Like, that's great. You change your life around and you're doing better for your family and your wife. What consequences should have been had? And maybe they had, like, in regards to, like, his emotional and mental turmoil. Cool. But physical consequences should have been had. Like, public consequences. Like, you know, if you were able to abuse your wife publicly and privately, you should be held accountable publicly and privately, you know? And I don't know if that's the petty in me, but that's literally how I feel. And I was talking to God about that, and I don't know why I constantly compare my father to Saul that turned into Paul. Yeah, because when I read the story of Saul that turned into Paul is like one of the greatest men in the Bible. He wrote like nearly most of it. And he's so encouraging when he's Paul. But before he was Paul, he was out here killing Christians and committing crimes and tearing your families apart and being an angry beast. And he was blaspheming the Holy Spirit. He was going around making other people blaspheme. Like, he was committing like several crimes, severe crimes. Like, these crimes were like big, and God changed his life, which is amazing. Again, the salvation part, like, great. He's no longer doing those things. He's a new man. He's able to encourage others. Amazing. And I like to compare that every time I think about my dad's story. I compare it to, like, Saul, because my dad did some terrible things. Like, I'm sure I am 100% sure he was a completely different man. Like, that was a devil in my father, and God changed that, and now he's like a completely washed, renewed. And it's like that story of my dad being an abuser to now being him is a true demonstration of God's grace and you being accepted into God's, like, arms and, like, salvation. That is a true, like, representation of that. Like, God really taking your sins and washing it away, and you become a new person. When you say you become a new person in Christ, that's what I see, like, when it comes to my dad. Like, literally coming in, like, a whole different creation. When I say that, I don't just say that, like, literally, like, a different person, like unrecognizable who he was. Like, down to, like, even his facial features. Like, his eyes look completely different. It's like the light is in it. Like, it's completely different. And I wish I could, like, describe it even more, but like, you literally see it. So that is a beautiful representation of when you give your life to Christ and you become a new creation. And that's my dad's story. But I like to compare it to Saul turning into Paul, because it's just that, like, Saul was a beast, an angry man, literally a devil walking, doing undescribable things, right? Which is pure hatred in his heart. And God taking that, his grace, and cleansing him, and him becoming a new person, like a completely new person. I'm sure he looked different too, like, to other people that knew who he was. Like, whoa, like, that is a new person, and he has a new identity, like a completely, that's the word, a different identity my dad has, and I feel like Paul had. But I constantly think about, and that's just the part of me that constantly that still needs to heal, because I don't want to be in this space anymore. I'm not saying this because, like, this is where, like, I'm happy being, but I'm saying this because this is where I currently am, and this is where God still needs to help me in. But whenever I think about that and I compare Saul to Paul, from my dad being an abuser to him being a loving father and husband, I think about, but dang, like, when I think about Saul's story, especially Paul's story, I'm like, wow, but what about all the people that he killed and all the family that he destroyed? Like, and I was literally talking to God this yesterday, like, in my mind. I was doing my chores, cleaning my room, and I was just like, yeah, God, like, consequences should have been had for Paul, right? Like, he did all of that, and he was able to be this great man of the Bible, and everybody is like, oh my gosh, Paul this, Paul that, and you were able to use him in such amazing ways. But dang, what about all his victims? What about all the families that he destroyed? Like, you know, like, imagine you were in his shoes. Like, imagine, like, somebody came, god forbid, god forbid, came and killed everybody. No, killed all the children in your town, and then he went and killed all the children in the next town, and he did that for 5 towns after that. And then God found him, and he had a concert with God, and he gave his life over to Christ, and he changed, and he just became a completely different person, and he laid down his life to serve God. That's amazing. That's an amazing testimony that shows God's grace and all of that. But what happened to the child that you lost, and your niece and nephew that you lost, and everybody in your neighborhood that lost a child? Did you just rejoice that the killer is a different person, and they just move on with their life with the loss and the trauma that they experienced? Like, does it just like, okay, great, he's a different person, yay, justice doesn't need to be served, he's a different person? You know what I mean? And I know that's not the same, but it's like, that's how I feel. And I just feel like, okay, cool, Paul, you did all these great things, but like, where are your consequences? And then a thought came to my mind. I'm like, okay, he was in prison for a different act, for a different crime. He was in prison for several years. So I was like, okay, is that like his part of his consequences? But because he's healed, his viewpoint is different. Like, is that sick of me to talk like this and say things like this? But that's where my mind was yesterday. I was like, okay, great. Like, was Paul being in prison his kind of like consequence for killing a whole bunch of people? But you were still able to serve him. Like, is that it? Like, you were able to not serve him, I'm sorry, you were able to use him. You were able to use Paul while he was in prison, and he was able to be a great man and write all these letters and motivate a whole bunch of churches and motivate a whole bunch of people, and, you know, do your work and be a great servant and great representation of who you are, your mercy, your grace. But he was in prison to kind of serve. To kind of, like, you know, serve and pay for what he's done. I don't know. I don't have an answer yet, but that's what came to mind. I was like, okay, so he was in prison because it kind of like, okay, great. It kind of gives the people that he hurt, like, okay, at least he's behind bars. He's a great man. Paul is a great man. He changed his life, but at least he's behind bars. So it kind of gives me a little bit of peace of mind. Like, he killed my child and all the children in my neighborhood. He's a great servant of God, and he's behind bars. A win is a win? I don't know. I don't want to laugh. I'm laughing because I'm like, this is ridiculous that my mind is going there. But legit, that's what I was thinking. So when it came to my dad, I was like, great, you're a great man, you changed, and my mom got the marriage that she wants. I don't know if this is the marriage that she wants, but she finally got a break. You know, she's free. She's no longer being abused, and her marriage has been redeemed. Like, she's like, I know she constantly prayed that my dad would go to church with her, not there serving at a church together. Like, the testimony is big, y'all. Like, one day I hope my parents could come on here and talk about their journey. That would be really, really amazing, because there's so much to learn from that, and it just shows God's greatness. But at the same time, I don't know if it's the petty in me, but the me holding on to hurt. And this is why I said in my message to my friend, like, I feel like I'm still holding on to hurt, because a part of me is like, yes, you're doing great and you're a much better person, but like, you still need to, like, part of me is like, you still need to, like, pay for what you did. And that's terrible that I think like that, and I don't want to think like that. And I don't know exactly how to heal from that. But yeah, yeah. And I don't know if my dad still deals with that shame, and I hope not, because having shame is just a terrible feeling. I don't know. Maybe like had to deal with so many things internally, because again, I'm speaking from outside. Like my dad and I don't have a deeper relationship to know where I know how like that experience was for him, because I'm sure it was like something like, yeah, extraordinary and painful and traumatic for him. But I don't know, maybe like now that I'm thinking about it, maybe like his consequences are more internal, and that could be honestly way worse than physical. Dealing with internal battles and, you know, demons is 10 times worse than physical, I think. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where my mind goes sometimes. But yeah, I don't want it to go there anymore. Like I want to be to look at my parents and be like, because now when I look at my parents and I'm like, yes, your marriage is so much better, but I'm like, dang God, like I don't want to go through all of that to finally get a happy ending. Like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to face abuse. I don't want to face like, and when I think about marriage, you know, people say marriage is hard because so many things, right? And people go through like in their marriage and go through a lot of problems, like ups and downs, like arguments, not being heard, emotional trauma, abuse. Like it's so much that people go through in their marriage and relationships, and then like 50 years later you have a happy ending. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't want that. And it's like the 0.5% of people whose marriage was just good from start to end. And when I say good, I'm not saying like you never argued or you never had a disagreement, but like you guys never manipulated each other, you guys never like abused each other, whether that is mentally, emotionally, or physically. You guys always had an amount of respect for one another, and upheld that for forever. You guys didn't pass down traumas to your children that your children still face when they're adults. Like that percentage of people is very, very low, and in the black community is even lower. And I'm like, yeah, no, like I don't want to go through, oh my gosh, like 100 years of slavery to be like, okay, I'm free. Like, no, 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 God forbid. I can't. I don't have it in me. No. And I hate that. I hate that it's like that. Yeah, because when I think about it in my personal life, do I know anybody with like an amazing marriage? When I say amazing marriage, we're like, yeah, they have to go through so much detrimental things that were bound for divorce before y'all got to like a good, decent, not even healthy, like decent space. It's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. It's, and I don't have that. I don't have that example. So when I look at my parents' marriage, although it's better, I just feel bad, especially for my mom. I just look at my mom. I'm like, Shorty did not deserve that. Like, and I just think about her childhood self, her inner child. I'm like, dang, like when she probably thought about her future husband as a kid, she probably thought of the Prince Charming story of somebody that would cater to her, that would love her unconditionally, respect their mind, body, and soul, that would just be gentle with her, that she would grow old with, that would be her person, her protector, her provider. Like, and to have the story that she had, although it's okay now, it's like, dang, like she was robbed of that. Her inner child was robbed of that. And it just makes me want to just be like, Mom, I want to give you everything. And I think a lot of people could relate to that, but especially people with single moms, when you look at your mom and all the things that she experienced, all the hurt, and it's like, dang. And I do feel like a lot of times it's we have to be held accountable for the choices that we make in regards to choosing our partner for life. It's like sometimes it's like there were a lot of red flags. And I don't know if there were red flags for my mom. I'm sure there was, but I never asked her. But it's like sometimes we have to like take our time, and especially her time. I feel like there was probably a bigger. There's always a pressure to get married for women. Like, yeah, but I feel like especially in her time, being older and being in Haiti, the pressure was probably way more intense to find a mate. So I feel like a lot of people tend to settle. A lot of women tend to settle, especially as you get older. When women about to hit 30, it's like all hell breaks loose. It's like, I need to be married, I need to have kids. And it's like, men don't think like that. Most men, not all. Because there's not that pressure from society. And I hate that for us. I hate that we have this heavy, like, this big pressure to settle down. And I feel like a lot of women tend to settle, especially when you're waiting for God. Waiting for God. Waiting for God, especially for a spouse. Yeah. And the thing about relationships, and I feel like when it comes to dating, from what I've experienced and from what my friends have experienced, it's like when you're waiting for God for that spouse, you're kind of like, like, I don't want to say like you're kind of like betting, but it's kind of like that too sometimes, because it's like, I don't even know if this is good or not. Like, and look, even when you look in the church, it's like that doesn't necessarily mean that's your spouse. Like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is of God. But yeah, so that's where my heart is. And I don't know, I feel like talking about it out loud to you guys and really digging deeper as to like why my feelings are the way that it is. I really pray that it's no longer that. Like, I want to be able to, one, be truly independent and really truly be myself and not really care what others think. Like, that is something that I'm not there yet, and I'm still breaking loose of other people's perception and opinions. And two, being able to just be my authentic self. Authentic self. Being able to be okay. I am okay alone. I'm definitely okay with alone. I don't crave anybody's presence. And I was talking to God about that too. Like, a couple of months ago, I was like really crying, really sad, because I really wanted like friends, and I really wanted my spouse, because I was constantly craving his presence. But now I don't. Like, I feel like, not that I don't care, but like I don't care. I don't really crave anybody, and I love that for me. And I'm at a space where I'm like, if he comes, he comes. If he don't, he don't. I don't care. In a way where like I'm not trying to control that situation. Like, I'm not on no dating apps. I'm not seeking nobody. I'm not in nobody's DM. I'm not going to no dating social. God will make it happen. I'm outside. I'm outside. I'm inside. I'm inside. Okay. But yeah, I'm being independent in my own choices and setting boundaries and saying no when I want to say no and saying yes when I want to say yes, regardless. But also being loving to everyone despite my past hurts, despite what that person had done to me. Being loving should be a universal thing for everyone. And yeah, being okay with not having friends in the season, not forever. I feel like friends are very important, but being okay with be like, okay, God didn't send me to my people yet, and that's fine. I do have friends, but I'm just saying, like, being okay if people walk away, being okay when new people come, and yeah, treating everybody the same with love, with boundaries. Yeah. So that's where I'm at in my journey, and God still has a lot of work to do with me, like a lot. But yeah, so I literally have to go, or else I'm gonna be late to my appointment, my meeting. But y'all, pray for me. Pray for me on this journey. I'll pray for y'all. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you want me to pray about, and I'll keep you in my prayers. Yeah, this was a really good talk. Yes. So I'll see you next week. Love you all. Be safe and God bless. Bye.